250 GTO is like, okay, cool. Yeah, there's just a 250 GTO here. Who cares?
It's, I think, one of the most groundbreaking things that I experienced there, and this is mostly at the Quail, but it was other places, is that you get an up close and personal view with some of the hypercars that don't really. We're all given the media photos of it, and we're given press photos of it. But when it's actually there, and when the tail section of that Koenigsegg is actually up, and you're able to stick your head in with no velvet rope around the actual car and get an up and close look at how these cars are actually put together and the sheer art of how they're designed. That was the most striking thing to me, is that like how up close and personal you can actually get with these incredible machines.
From Olympic City and the home of Pikes Peak, this is the Automotive ADHD Show with Matt West.
So this is a special edition of the show, one could say. This is the week after the Monterey Car Week special edition. And by that, I mean I have joining me here in the next segment, Wesley Kagan, YouTuber, guy who likes wrenching on overpriced and very overappreciated, well, no, they've been very over-depreciated cars, and he attended the Monterey Car Week out in California, and he had a very exciting time there, notably without this Automotive Talk radio show host. He did invite me, in all fairness, to be fair to him. However, his invite was like a couple hours before he was going to get there. He's like, hey, I'm passing the airport. You think you want to get a last-minute flight here, and I'll pick you up? And anyway, I couldn't make it, and well, that's something we'll have to rectify for next year. But Wesley, as his penance, I mean, as a token of his appreciation, he has decided to become my unofficial Automotive ADHD Monterey Car Week correspondent. So we're going to get on the phone with him here in the next segment and hear his experience. Monterey Car Week is such an interesting event every single year. Well, it's a conglomeration of events. It's not any one event itself, but if you're into classic American cars, American muscle, maybe you're into pre-war classics. That's something. If you're into European cars, exotics, if you like rusty old things from the 80s and 90s like I do, there's something there for you as well. And he is going to share all of that and his tips on how you can actually do the Monterey Car Week on a budget. Yeah, imagine that. People think it's like 20 grand to go out and do the Monterey Car Week. Well, actually, a lot of people spend more than that. He is going to tell us, in theory, and I'm excited to hear this from him, how you can do that for a lot less than that. Something that's, a little more my speed with like the type of cars I drive. So anyway, he's going to be joining us here. And then after that, he is also going to tell us about a special announcement that he has. And I have a little inside peek on this already. I think it's going to be really fun. So can't wait to do that. And then I think we'll wrap up the show talking about used cars and how the prices are going up. It's a seller's market. Is it really a buyer's market? No, I can already answer that. It's not. But we're going to talk about that and some of the economic factors as to why I think that is. Now, of course, you can catch this show here on the radio in Southern Colorado, several great radio stations to catch it on, as well as online, YouTube, Spotify, Facebook, and more. We're on video, too. So you can not only hear this show, you can watch this show. And if you do listen on the radio, I encourage you to just jump over to YouTube, punch up Automotive ADHD Show, and then go ahead and subscribe to it, because we're very close to an important milestone on YouTube. Are we approaching 100,000 subscribers, 200,000 subscribers, maybe even Wesley's mythical 300 trillion subscribers? No, but we're not that far from 10,000. But importantly, we're right on the threshold of getting paid for YouTube. So That's definitely not my only incentive, but that is definitely a strong incentive. So go over to YouTube, subscribe, and show some support to the show there. It costs you nothing, and it helps out a ton if you go do it. So now, before we get into any of that, I had I risked my life, in fact, this week. Life and limb to prevent hail damage from one of my beloved crusty cars, and I'll tell you about that here. I did something that really you should not do. That actually, as a kid growing up, adults tell you don't do that. Like when you go to school, they tell you to not do what I did. I got lucky. I got very lucky. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you about this week's sponsor of the show, SpyTech GPS. These guys really make a great product that I think you need. I think anyone who has a car needs one of these, especially if you live here in Colorado. Over 24,000 vehicles were stolen here in Colorado last year, 2024. And you know what? That was actually considered an improvement over previous metrics from previous years. Yeah, somehow 24,000 stolen cars is an improvement. I still think that's unacceptable. We got a long way to go. But you can't always prevent car theft. You can do a lot to prevent it. Sometimes a thief, they say that, a thief is, if they're determined, they're going to steal it. But you can actually curb that on the back end by being able to recover the vehicle and find the thieves with a GPS tracker. Last week, I talked at length about how you should not put an Apple AirTag in your car, how that's a terrible idea. If you want to hear about why that's a horrible idea, go check it out on the podcast. But grab one of these GPS trackers. I've got this one. They've got this nice magnetic case as a accessory. You can pick one of these up too. Nice little GPS tracker. This one's off the bottom of my trailer. It's nice and dusty and not currently on my trailer, I should add, so please don't steal my trailer until I can go put this back on my trailer. But if you use my promo code, AUTO, it's a new code this week. We got a new one, and I'm really happy about it. It's even my own, AUTO ADHD 15. If you use that when you go to SpyTech's website, and by the way, that's SpyTech spelled SPYTEC. And if you go to their website, yes, there is a subscription for these trackers. It's 110% worth it. You get a great app on the phone. You can track it anytime you want. It's really handy. That subscription, though, is 100% worth it, but you get a discount. So by being a listener of this show, you get a 35% discount. And then if you use that promo code on top of that, you get another 15% discount on any subscription service that they have, which is tremendous value. And go check that out. If you're watching on video as well or online, the link will be in the description of the show. And if you're listening on the radio, just go look them up online and get yourself a subscription. Protect what is important. Cars are important. It's how we get to work. It's how we make money. It's what we do. Keep the car out of, this is to really help you out once it is in the hands of the thieves. This is going to help you out a lot. So go get one of these. Now, I, being someone who does value my cars, even though beauty is sometimes in the eye of the beholder, that probably applies to my cars in particular, especially the S2000 right now. In fact, if you're watching on video, it's got like this growth on the back. It just showed up overnight that way. I don't know what that is or what that's for. It may be cancerous, in fact. I don't even know. Is it going to spread? Are there going to be more of these that are going to show up on the car? I don't know. But I did save my car from possible hail damage, and I almost drowned in a flash flood in the process. Let me walk you through what happened. Because I have my garage here, which can fit two cars. I've got the crusty Corolla here. I've got the S2000 there. I was doing some work on my Subaru last night when a storm rolled in. And if you've been here in Colorado, you know that we've been getting some rain lately. This week, we've been getting a ton of rain over the past week. And this storm rolls in, and I say, I don't have all my cars protected and covered. We get hail out here, too, which is nasty. I don't like the hail one bit. The rain is nice because it keeps the wildland fire risk down, which is good, but I also don't like the hail. So I've got a storage unit a few blocks down the street. It's walking distance. So I have the Subaru in here. I jump in the Honda. The rain's starting to come down. I look at the weather radar. There's a big red blob coming right at me with some pink in it. You know, that's not good. And I get the car down to the storage unit, and I get it into there. And then the heavens just unleash. I mean, this was like a typhoon. This was torrential. It dumped so much rain in just a few minutes, and I had to walk back. And I didn't grab a jacket or anything on my way out. I was in a rush to do it. There's this drainage ditch that runs under the road right past my storage unit, and it's like 12 feet deep. It's a deep ditch. That ditch, they talk about flash floods. When you're in school, they say never go play in a ditch because flash floods will take you out. Well, this within minutes, this wall of water, I kid you not, came in, filled that whole ditch at least 12 feet high, and then started spilling out to the road on top of it. And I say, I got to get out of here, but my only route of exit is through the road, which now has a couple feet of water rushing past it. So I sprinted through the water. It came up past my knees, which, this was stupid. I mean, are you looking at your host on video right now and thinking, this is the look of a smart guy right here? This was exactly what they told you not to do in school. I survived it, though, which was good, because otherwise Jim Miller would have to host the show from now on. So, and I did that all to at least keep the car from getting hailed on. And the shocker, the bombshell, there was no hail. Anyway, we'll be right back. Wesley Kagan coming up after this.
He can't drive 55. Not when his car is still on jack stands. This is Automotive ADHD with Matt West.
So normally, I feel like the voice guy is talking about me. I do feel like that's a personal attack, but he could also be talking about my next guest coming up here on the show. Wesley Kagan joining me from Arizona. Wesley's been a longtime guest on this show, and he has, I don't know if his car decisions are worse than mine, but they might be. Wesley Kagan, thanks for joining me here on the show.
Absolutely, yeah. Longtime fan, first-time caller here. And that's really funny because I think this is the first time I'm calling in on a phone instead of actually sitting in front of a microphone. So that's a fun thing.
Well, and when I call into talk shows, I usually say a longtime caller, first-time listener. That's usually my go-to there. But
yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So Wesley, reason for the call here is the other week you were out at Monterey Car Week and you invited me out. I couldn't come out for various business reasons, and I was really bummed. I'm like, man, you know what? That looks like it would be really fun. And Monterey Car Week, for those who aren't in the know, we'll get you up to speed. It started, by the way, back in 1950. And it came out of the Pebble Beach Road Race, essentially. But what it is, I mean, every single fancy, concours event and, high-end supercar show and even other interesting shows all happened kind of within the same week out in Monterey, California. And Wesley, you had a chance to go out there. And so you're sort of my impromptu correspondent for the Monterey Car Week. You didn't know you were going to be a correspondent for it until I texted you today and said, hey, can you please come on my show? I'm out of content. I mean, we need to talk about Monterey Car Week.
Yeah, I'm your man on the street. I'm working the beat on this for sure, which is something that I do. And I want to be clear that in the way that you texted me about this today, I invited you to go to Monterey Car Week while I was actively driving Wednesday evening to Monterey Car Week. And I was like, look, if you get a last minute flight into Ontario, California, which to be clear is 6 hours away from Monterey, there was like a weird series of events that would have been extremely cost prohibitive to make this all come together. So I just want to be clear, like I did invite you, but I probably could have planned a little bit better. Yeah. But it is a very different world out there in Monterey. And this was my first time going because I don't go to car shows that much in that capacity, and especially not ones that have this level of prestige to them for sure. Honestly, the interesting part was my first concern was that I didn't know if there was enough to fill 3 days worth of stuff to do. I just didn't know if there was. And I can actually say in confidence that there's 3 to 4 solid days of things to do, things happening, talks to go to, and the entire town does really transform into someone who, if you're into cars, you just have to be there. It's quite an experience just listening to everything drive around. It's really something.
Well, and, it's interesting, too, in seeing a lot of the media come out of what's happened there. I mean, there is everything at Monterey, from whether you're a supercar fan, whether you like, classic American, or maybe you're a little more classic, you're like the Duesenberg type of classic person. There's truly everything there. And now, of all the events there, what were some of the shows that you managed to make it out to?
And that's a really interesting thing is that I'd make the claim that you don't have to go to any of the shows if you don't want. You can sit on any street corner in Monterey and see 10 Koenigseggs drive by at any given point. It's truly something pretty crazy in that regard. But I did happen to go to a few of the shows, and I have a report that it may go slightly against what the standard. I feel like my Instagram feed absolutely was filled with people taking photos of very similar cars, and I want to be clear, a lot of incredible cars were launched at the Quail and around Monterey Car Week. But there's essentially a couple of different. I feel like the two main events that are the car show kind of things are the Quail there and the Motorsports Reunion, and then the actual Concours d'Elegance on Sunday, which I think I'm mispronouncing, but that's beside the point. But that's to say that I went to the Quail, and hold for applause, because I was able to, and I'm going to be upfront about this, the Quail is an expensive event to go to, and I initially did not want to pay the money to go to the Quail. And until the morning of, I had no intention of going to the Quail until I scalped a set of tickets from people who were no longer going for, I believe, below the discounted rate of what normally would happen. And more importantly, I swiped a blue parking pass, which I learned to find out is like a $675 parking pass. So that's to say that I was parking in a parking lot that I did not belong in, and then I had to also enter the event. And, it is the place to be. That is such an opportunity to get some truly almost one-on-one time with some of the most influential people in the car world. And that's absolutely worth something. But at the end of the day, and I entered with an open mind, and I want to be clear, I do not regret going in the slightest because it was an incredible experience. However, I did try my best to earn back my ticket price in the amount of free food and champagne that was available at this particular event. And I think next year, and I'm joking about this because I'd like to be invited back, but I'm not joking about this in that I'm bringing Tupperware, and I am going down the buffet lines, and we're coming in with a strategy next year, and I think that's definitely something.
Well, and I think that strategy should also include everyone's favorite automotive talk radio host attending as well.
It absolutely should. And just to be clear, if the Quail is listening, we won't show up with Tupperware if you invite us.
Tupperware is it's a figure of speech, actually. Really, I mean, we're coming with we're coming with open minds. That's what we're doing. Yeah.
If they want to sell branded Tupperware for us, I'm also okay with that.
Have you
want to come out with merch?
Did you happen to get your hands on? Are you familiar with the Dawn Patrol hats that are coveted out there at the concourse?
I did not.
Okay, I was gonna say, if you
hands on those,
if you did, you could have recovered your ticket cost, because for the listeners who aren't familiar with it, this is one of these weird things that probably can only happen at this event. The Dawn Patrol. So when they set up at the concourse, they're Concours d'Elegance. I think that's the right way to say it. When they set up, the cars aren't parked there overnight. So everyone comes in really early to set up. And now it's become a tradition for people to go out there at the crack of dawn and watch them set the cars up. And now they have started over the years handing out hats, a select few, because they have to be limited edition and they must be special. Select few hats to those attending the Dawn Patrol. And apparently it's quite a rowdy sort of event now when they hand out the hats. It's sort of like when you throw food into a pond of like piranhas, really, is what happens. But
Sure.
I don't know if you saw this, but David Tracy out at the Autopian, which we've corresponded before with this show and the Autopian. And fun fact, I ran into David Tracy randomly like 5 years ago as he was driving his Jeep across Colorado, which was pretty cool.
Sure.
But David Tracy and the guys at the Autopian went out there with their own version of the Dawn Patrol hat, and it's the Yon Patrol hat, actually.
Nice.
And they started handing those out, and it created quite a commotion, in fact, out there. So perhaps we could take some inspiration from them and maybe do that with branded Tupperware for the event.
I think that's a great idea. So from the Quail, I drove out of the Fancy Grass parking lot that Christian von Koenigsegg parked in and drove up the hill to Laguna Seca, where Monterey Motorsports reunion sponsored by Rolex, brought to you by yada, yada, yada. And that was truly one of the events that I would absolutely recommend because the cost was fairly low. And walking through the pits, it was truly like walking through an SCCA class in 1965. You were sitting in the pits there next to a Type 35 and also a DB5 Aston Martin. It was the true classic LMP1 cars. It was such a great experience to, watch the pre-war cars drive around and to, watch LMP cars do the corkscrew. That was a very, very solid experience, especially if you're into racing history and especially if you want to be just there as things are happening on a racetrack. And that's definitely worth at least half a day of your time to go up there and pick some events that you like to see. A few of the other ones that are just great, Radwood, I think this might have been their first year out there, so I stopped by and took a look at that. And that was a really good turnout, especially if you're into the 80s and 90s cars.
Well, I was gonna say, if you can kind of expand on that for folks who aren't familiar with Radwood, they've been doing the shows for a number of years. So I don't know if they have been out there at Monterey before. Radwood is really cool. It's very rad, as one could say, and I mean it's just basically 80s stuff. Essentially, it's wedge cars. It's anything cool for the 80s stuff is classic now. I mean, who are we kidding? It is. It's this generations. It's the millennial generations and some of the older or younger Gen Xers at this point. It's their classic 60s muscle car moment essentially now.
It really is, and I mean, especially if you want to see stuff like the Victoria's Secret Lamborghini, it's right in that alley, and it's a pretty cool event. And I'd recommend it. And then the next morning, the Concours de Lemons is fantastic because it's a lot of, it's the lemons. And
is this in 24 hours of lemons spirit?
Yes.
Okay.
24 hours of lemon spirit, but it's the Concours de Lemons.
Okay.
And it's, well, let's put it this way. I went to a car show where prominently placed there was a mid-90s Dodge Grand Caravan and a PT Cruiser. What a fantastic car show in the car capital of the world, in my opinion. And there was actually a lot of really cool people that went to Concours de Lemons. And it's definitely because Exotics on Broadway is right there. So it's really close.
Nice. Wesley Kagan, my guest. Wesley, hang tight with me if you can through the break here. We're going to talk about this and more, and maybe talk about some interesting things coming up on your YouTube channel. That's all coming up here on the Automotive ADHD show. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Under the hood and behind the mic, Matt West is on Automotive ADHD.
And not just me, those car sounds are your listener-submitted car sounds. And you can send those in, facebook.com/Automotive ADHD for a chance to win the keychain as well as some other stuff. And I have joining me over the phone, YouTuber extraordinaire, 260 million subscribers. That's inflated possibly a little bit, but his name is Wesley.
Not at all.
His name is Wesley Kagan. I only inflated it by actually a few, just by 4 or 5.
Nope, that's actually, I'm the most popular person on that particular website. I don't think anybody else has heard of anybody else.
Number one on featured every day. So,
constantly.
But Wesley Kagan does YouTube. And he does it quite well, in fact. He does have a channel. Look him up at Wesley Kagan. He does engineering projects. He does automotive projects. The most latest project involves the world's most expensive car from, 1993?
1993.
93. Yep. So if you want to see what that ownership experience is like, and while it's also the most expensive car in the world from 1993, I would argue probably one of the most heavily depreciated cars in the world.
It's got to be. It's got to be close because I feel like a lot of expensive cult classic cars from that era have really had a resurgence. And this, this isn't one of them. And that's why I like it. I look at cars that were once bought and that nobody liked when they bought them, and nobody liked them when they were new, and still nobody likes them. And I go, yeah, that's the one that that's the one that I want. That's exactly what I like.
So remember, if you've got a car that nobody likes, nobody wants, call him up. He'll probably buy it off of you. So
yeah, that's unfortunately true.
Well, and Wesley, you are also, now you can add this into your resume here. You are my unofficial Monterey Car Week correspondent, in fact. Sort of like a war correspondent, but a little less glorious than that.
I'm a liaison. No, it's absolutely just as dangerous, to be clear.
Yes. And before the break, we were talking a little bit about the different shows you attended at Monterey Car Week, and we were just touching on Radwood. Now, let's continue on that thought train there for a little bit. But what are some things that you saw at Monterey that were perhaps unexpected? Because people are going there to see supercars. They're going there to see $1 million cars, and it's a place where Ferrari 250 GTO is like, okay, cool, yeah, there's just a 250 GTO here. Who cares?
It's, I think, one of the most groundbreaking things that I experienced there, and this is mostly at the Quail, but it was other places, is that you get an up close and personal view with some of the hypercars that that don't really, we're all given the media photos of it, and we're given press photos of it, but when it's actually there, and when the tail section of that Koenigsegg is actually up, and you're able to stick your head in with no velvet rope around the actual car and get an up and close look at how these cars are actually put together and the sheer art of how they're designed. That was the most striking thing to me, is that, like, how up close and personal you can actually get with these incredible machines. And like, I'm not, I want to be clear. And I don't think I've ever really been part of car spotter culture. I'm not. That is less intriguing to me, but like, it's absolutely a mecca of that for sure. But like, I was very impressed with how, from an engineering perspective, that everybody was very cool with me taking close-up photos of suspension parts, clearly intending to be like, yeah, I like that design.
It's not going to show up in a YouTube video on some sort of unusual car in your fleet, is it? No, not at all.
I would never. Yeah.
So in a sense, though, I think that's one of the things that's kind of fun about events like this is if you're a fan of these cars. I was talking with Ross. He's the chief engineer at my flagship radio station, AM 1460, The Answer. He's a big car guy. He loves supercars. He loves a lot of the European exotics. And he was actually asking me, he's like, how come you haven't been covering Monterey Car Week? And I was like, hey, let me call up Wesley. Hold on. But, you know, a guy like him really loves those cars, and he loves them from a technical aspect, too, in a sort of, you know, you can you can be a fan of these cars and enjoy them, but likewise, you can also appreciate not just the cars themselves, but the craftsmanship, the engineering, perhaps the design, the aesthetics. There's so many different things that kind of scratch that itch of curiosity, and that's why I think events like this are really cool, even if you're not particularly a supercar fan or a classic car fan. You're going to see something there that's really cool and gets you thinking about stuff.
And if nothing else, you'll be in the culture where people are incredibly passionate about their specific corner of car or automotive culture. And that's incredibly nice to see. You know, there's a lot of people that really are into the pre-war cars that are there. There's a lot of people that are really into, you know, just how much that town transforms into something else is very cool. It's absolutely worth going at least once in your life, if nothing else, just to soak in the vibes for a minute.
Yeah. And, you know, there's a number of car events out there in the world that I think if you are even on the surface level into cars that are worth going to, Monterey Car Week is certainly one of those. And
here's the thing. I think that you could have an outstanding experience. I know what some of these events cost, and like I've pulled up the Concours d'Elegance website and looked at the price of what it takes to get into that. And I think that if you get yourself there, you can have a genuinely positive experience for a lot less than paying for all of the high priced events. I think my sales pitch for Monterey is go with like very little expectation of like paying to get into stuff. You know, go to a couple of the talks, go to a couple of the smaller events, but like I think someone could get away for a lot cheaper than what it initially, like the initial thought of Monterey sounds like, to be honest.
Right, because like, people think it's going to be expensive. It's going to be really over the top. It's going to be 20 grand for it. People have that sort of notion, but really it's not. There's a much more grassroots way of enjoying it. Yeah,
exactly. And I think that like that's my hot tip of the day for this. That's my actual reporting of the day, is that, look, I stayed in San Jose, which is an hour and a half away of a commute, but hear me out. It's up and over a beautiful redwood pass that you drop into Santa Rosa and drive the PCH California coast all the way down to Monterey. It's a wonderful commute. It's one that I enjoyed all 6 times that I did it. And that hotel in San Jose was much cheaper in the standard price of a standard interstate hotel compared to anything in Monterey. And you don't have to eat at the fancy restaurants, and you can have a genuinely good time on a budget within reason. And that's my sales pitch. Do that, and you don't have to. It doesn't have to be ridiculously expensive, which is super cool.
Well,
which I think is a really selling point.
I do imagine your accommodations were probably nicer than when I invited you to the Pikes Peak hill climb and then subsequently had you sleep in the rain outside. So that was probably a little better.
You know, I did file workman's comp on you for that, but
that's still processing. By the way, that'll be a bit. It'll be a while.
I haven't seen that. I don't think. Yeah.
Hey, Wesley, before we go down that hole here, real quick, we've got a minute left.
Okay.
How can people follow what you're doing? And in 30 seconds, give me an exciting nugget of what you're working on right now.
You can follow me on Wesley Kagan on YouTube or Instagram or other places. And in the 21st of September, we are doing Wesley Kagan Live, which is better named than Wesley Kagan Live, but Matthew West is producing it, and it's going to be really cool. You should watch it. We're live swapping a Bentley.
It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to touch more on that. I'll give you some more info on it, too, in the next segment. You don't want to miss this. You're listening to Automotive ADHD right here.
This is Automotive ADHD with Matt West.
All right, we're wrapping up the show into the 4th segment, cruising with the top down. Now, if you're just joining us, I cut off Wesley Kagan. as he was telling you actually about something really important. So I kind of want to tag on to that a bit. But he was telling you about Wesley Kagan Live, as we're calling it. Sort of like Jimmy Kimmel Live, though Wesley's talent fee is actually quite a bit less than Jimmy Kimmel. So, having said that, it's a live stream extravaganza, as you could call it. It is going to be a marathon, at least probably no less than 12-hour live stream. Yes, I know we don't all have 12 hours to watch it end to end, but I think you should really tune into the entire program because I'm producing it for one, which is going to be fun. So Wesley and I have teamed up to make this a reality, and we are going to do an engine swap, an LS V8 engine swap on a car that probably hasn't had an LS in it before, at least this specific example, and you may be familiar with it if you do follow his YouTube channel. And we're going to prove just how easy LS engine swaps really are. And I say that with a little hint of sarcasm there, mostly because it's Wesley and me, and something may go wrong. Something certainly may. I don't really expect anything to go according to plan. In fact, I will be surprised if actually something does go according to plan, but it will all be for your benefit, all for your entertainment value. And there may be some other people from the automotive media space who you recognize as well on the broadcast. So this should be a lot of fun. Tune into Wesley's YouTube channel at Wesley Kagan, September 21st. And also, that's a Sunday. The day before that, Saturday, September 20th, we are going to do this show live from Wesley's shop as we set up for the live stream and hope that we have all of the parts for the engine swap ready to go. So this should be a lot of fun. Join us there. Make sure you're following Wesley Kagan on YouTube. Make sure you're following this show as well on YouTube. And tune in for better or for worse. So now I want to talk a little bit about used car prices as we wrap up the show here, because this is something that I think is very emblematic of the world we live in right now. It is perhaps also a sign of the economy as a whole and some uncertainty that I think people have right now. And that is used car prices. Hat Tip Car and Driver. They have an article here, quote, used car prices have been climbing for 5 months now. And they say that the average price of a 1 to 5 year old used vehicle is $31,770, which is up from July 2024 about $1,100, $1,146 to be specific. So that's a measurable increase. You'll feel that in your pocket. $1,100 more compared to roughly this time last year. I know we're getting into September here, but the numbers only go up to July right now. But and there's been month-to-month price growths. March, a 1% growth then. April, 1.8%. May, 2%. June, 4.8%. And the reason for this, I think, breaks down into multiple reasons, which is, for one, consumer demand is up. People want cars. People need cars. But they're not necessarily wanting to buy new cars. Not only that, I think there's some concerns. There's certainly some uncertainty when it comes to tariffs. So people are wanting to avoid purchasing a brand new vehicle that could experience tariffs, and they're immediately opting for used vehicles. Is that necessarily a bad thing? There's a lot of great used vehicles out there. I think more people should buy used in general. A lot of people jump to buying new and discover what depreciation is, which that there's now granted, Wesley Kagan, as you may recall, probably has the most depreciated car in the world. That's maybe a little bit of an outlier, but you can expect a heavy amount of depreciation anytime you're purchasing a new vehicle. And when we look at this, we see some of that uncertainty with tariffs. I've talked about the tariffs before on this show. We haven't done an update on it, and I think I want to dedicate a really good portion of a show to doing a little bit of a tariff update. It's challenging, though, because stuff changes so quickly, but I want to be able to do that coming up here in the future. But my take on the tariffs is we need to onshore manufacturing in the United States significantly. Auto manufacturing is a big key of that. The automotive supply chain is so globalized. Remember what happened back during COVID and the supply chains got shut down and what that did to car prices, what that did to available inventory, what that did to all of these different things. And I think that being able to onshore a lot of that production is going to be really important for the long term. Now, I did say as well that I don't know tariff-wise if that is necessarily the best tool to get to that point, because, and even if it is or isn't, I feel like one of the things that hasn't been explained a lot is the process behind it, the thought process behind a lot of the details. Okay, if we do this, if we do X, what's the result? And I think people are uncertain. What that causes is, well, uncertainty. And people say, I don't know about buying a new car right now. I'm going to get something used for the time being. You should go certified pre-owned, by the way. That's my official advice here. I will always tell you to go certified pre-owned. If you want a new car and you don't want as much depreciation and you still want it to be reliable and have a warranty and all that, certified pre-owned's awesome. You cannot go, in my opinion, you cannot go wrong with that. But I digress. So, and I think people, just don't want to show up at the dealer and pay those tariff prices, even though I think a lot of people are also not realizing that dealers have a lot of inventory that is pre-tariff still. They got a ton of inventory that's pre-tariff. And by that, I mean those parts, those vehicles, all of that stuff came in before the tariffs went into effect. Interestingly, in this breakdown, the EV market does turn out to be an exception. While used car prices across the board are going up, EV prices are actually falling. So, for example, here, the same figures found in May, EV prices went down 8.8 negative. So negative 8.8%. They went down 4.8% in June, and they went down another 1.3% in July. And which is interesting. And Tesla values, especially, they found, dropped significantly as well. Now, what does this actually mean for all of us? I mean, it's good if you're a seller right now, because the demand is there and people are willing to pay a higher price right now. Will that demand hold out? Will people's, even if that demand holds out, will people's willingness to pay higher prices sustain itself? I don't necessarily think so. I think we saw this a lot during COVID when the new car supply dried up because of manufacturing supply chain shortfalls. And we got this bubble in the used car market. And we got this big bubble, and that bubble burst, and then we got down to the bottom again, and now we're going back up. It's another bubble in that used car market. So, I mean, if you've got a used car and you want to sell it right now, it's not a bad time to do that. Now, bear in mind, if you're a buyer wanting to do it, also keep in mind that other people are really wanting to do used cars. There's gonna be more competition when it comes to buying them, especially if you're buying them private party. You might be reaching out to a seller on Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist, and he may have like 10 inquiries already, and that can make it a little difficult. You might have to haggle more. You might have to put up a little bit more money. It really depends on there. EVs, though, are shaping up to be a good value if you do need something. If your use case fits an EV, that's not a bad value right now. Just know that they're going to keep depreciating further. So you're going to buy into an EV, a depreciated one, and then it's going to continue to depreciate. You will lose money on it. So, but again, I think it's interesting how the used car market really is reflective of what's going on in the economy. It's a good economic indicator as to what is actually happening and what's going on, because it reflects people's wallets, and that wallet reflects what's going on in both their lives, but on the macro scale and the bigger economic sense on this. And, if you're trying to, I will say too, I've seen a little bit of an increase too in like parts prices and things like that. Used, again, like trying to buy them in Facebook groups and all that. I've seen stuff going up slowly but surely. So we'll have to see how long this turns out to be a bubble. We'll have to see how changing tariff policy affects it too, because that's changing constantly. You don't know what's going to happen right now. So anyway, hey, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Remember to subscribe to this show on YouTube and Spotify. We'll talk to you next week right here.